Hi, I just want to talk to you a little bit about this REACH campaign that you may or may not have heard about. The REACH campaign is a diocesan campaign, and what it is trying to do is trying to help us to have a bit of a bigger vision for the church. It's helping us to think about where we would be if we removed our financial limitations. What would we do? What would God be calling us to do if we didn't have to think about the money that's standing in our way? And so that's what the REACH campaign is really about. I want to talk a little bit about why Christians give. We read in the Bible, in Luke chapter 8, verses 1 to 3, we read that Jesus traveled about from one town and village to another, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom of God. And the 12 were there with him, and also some women who had been cured from evil spirits and diseases. And if we go down to the bottom of verse 3, it says, "And many others, these women were helping to support them out of their own means." And so we find even in Jesus' own ministry that there were people who were financially supporting him and his ministry and the people who were with him. And so we find this right from the very beginning of Jesus' mission on earth, that there were people who financially supported him. And they financially supported him because they believed in what he was doing, and they wanted to see it extend. They wanted to see what he was doing be as broad-reaching as possible. And so Christians give because they want to be a part of what God is doing in this world. They want to be a part of ministries that are helping to make a difference. We also give because as we read, you might remember those of you who know the Book of Common Prayer, there is a prayer at the end of the offering that says, "Blessed be thou, Lord God of Israel, forever and ever. All that is in the heaven and the earth is thine. All things come of thee, and of thine own have we given thee." And this is from 1 Chronicles 29. And the teaching that we have there is that God gives us everything we have. Everything that is good, everything that is beautiful, our very lives, our finances, our family, our friends, all of that is a very generous gift from a very generous God. And so whatever we give is really something that God has first given to us. And so we give out of thanksgiving for what he has given to us. And it's kind of this funny back and forth. I remember when I was a little kid, my mom, actually she gave me, I was very little, my mom gave me money to get her a Mother's Day present. I think my dad was away on a trip, and it was Mother's Day. And so it was this funny kind of game that we played where she gave me this money and I went and spent it and gave something to her as a Mother's Day present, but it was really something that she had already given me, and so it wasn't really a gift. And this is the same kind of game that we play with God. God has given to us, and we give back to him, and then God gives back to us. And it's not something that is out of duty, but it is something that is out of love. It's two lovers always trying to bless one another. And we also read in Romans 12 that it's not just money. This isn't just about money. Romans 12 verse 1 says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship." And so it is not just what we have, not just our possessions that we are called to be generous with. It is our very lives, our whole selves are to be given to God. And that's really what he wants. He really wants all of us. And so stewardship is broader ranging than just money, but it does include money. And the danger is that if we exclude money out of that equation, out of who we are as disciples of Jesus, that it can kind of take on its own strange life. It can be very seductive because money can promise us security and freedom and power, and it can give us a little bit of that, but it is very dangerous unless it is put under the dominion of Jesus and brought into our life as disciples and incorporated into our life as disciples. And I remember one preacher, he said that he loved the offertory, actually. and he would take his envelope, and when the basket came around, he would talk to his money that he has in the envelope, and he would say, "You are not my God." And he would put it in the envelope. It was a very moving experience for him, where he resisted the fear that he had associated with the money and the idol worship that he was in danger of when he was dealing with his own money. We always want to bring all of who we are under the lordship of Jesus, including our finances. We don't want to cut that off. The church in recent years has suffered from reduced revenue, and this is all across North America and in Western Europe as well, that we have decreased revenue for a variety of reasons, many of which are cultural. But one of the effects is that when we have decreased revenue, the church can lose its focus, and it can become focused merely on paying the bills. And so we don't necessarily think about God's mission or what we are being called to do, but we can think about heating the building and keeping a roof on the place. And that shrinks our vision. God has a much bigger vision for us. And our financial limitations can reduce our vision. So what we want to do with the Reach campaign is we want to get rid of those financial limitations and capture again that bigger vision that God has for us. And that bigger vision is God's mission, where he wants to show God's love to this world. And we get to be a part of that, which is a beautiful thing. We as disciples get to be used by God to be his loving people in this world. There's a lot going on at St. Timothy's, and as you know, we've recently had a building campaign, and we have renovated Stewart Hall and the bathrooms and a kitchen downstairs, but we also don't want to have an empty building without filling it with ministry. We use Stewart Hall in a variety of ways, one of which is to open it up to the neighborhood. So there are many groups that use our facility. We have many AA groups, for example, and they are a beautiful organization that does very, very important work. They are, if you've ever been to an AA meeting, I encourage you to go to an open group. They are a church, and they do a very important thing. They walk alongside people who are trapped in addiction, and they are very self-sacrificial in the way that they serve one another. So it's a beautiful group, and I'm glad and encouraged by the fact that we have many AA groups here at St. Timothy's, and that we can can make use of Stewart Hall in its newly renovated state. It can be a much more welcoming place for those groups, and as well as many other neighborhood groups that we open our doors up to. I want to talk a little bit about what we want to do specifically at St. Timothy's in terms of the Reach campaign. First, we want to look at Sunday school and our youth programming. Children, it is sometimes said, are the future of the church. And while that's true, they are also the present of the church. They are in our midst, and we make vows to them. In our prayer book, when children are baptized, we say, the question is asked, "Will you who witness these vows do all in your power to support these persons in their life in Christ?" And we answer, "We will." And so the children in our midst, we have made a vow to them to help them become disciples of Jesus. And one of the ways that we do that is through Sunday school. Another way that we do that is through youth group. We want to give them access to resources. We want to give them access to a welcoming space, and we've done that through renovating Stewart Hall. We want to give them the attention of leaders as well. And so Sunday school is a very important and growing ministry. We also have a youth group that we are doing as part of a partnership with St. Paul's, and we would like to be able to support that financially as well, and to give leadership and to give resources to that ministry so that it can be in a similar kind of way that we can fulfill our vows to that group as well. We also have a messy church here at St. Timothy's, which you may or may not know about. On the third Saturdays of every month, Messy Church meets in Stewart Hall. We do a craft, we meet and do a craft. We have a time of teaching where we learn about a biblical theme. And we also do a time where we eat together and have fellowship and get to know each other a little bit better. It is a way of doing church that is reaching out to those who would not really step into the church building on a Sunday morning at 10 o'clock or at 8:30. Our culture is shifting dramatically. And sometimes there are things that have nothing to do with Jesus that keep people away from church. You might have noticed that there's a lot more going on Sunday mornings than there were 50 years ago. There's all kinds of sports games, there's all kinds of things. And families are very, very busy. Normally there are two people earning an income and there's lots of housework to be done. And so it can be difficult for families to be a part of a church in a traditional kind of way. What Messy Church does is it helps create a space that is more welcoming to people who find church, because of the way that it's structured, difficult. Messy Church is a very important ministry that helps us to reach out to people who would not otherwise be a part of the church and who might not otherwise hear the healing words of Jesus. And so it's a very important ministry that we want to support. All of these ministries, the Sunday school, the youth group, and Messy Church, in our last budget had a zero beside their budget line. That cannot be maintained. That's not a way to fulfill our vows to these children and to these families. So we want to shift that, and we want to use some of the resources that we gain through Reach to be able to funnel those towards those ministries that presently don't have any funding. So the first part of our case for the Reach campaign is youth and children's ministries. The second thing we want to do is to focus on pastoral care. We, you might know, have an associate priest, Regula Brandel, who is with us. She is doing a lot of pastoral care in the parish. And at present, the diocese is paying her. We are not paying her anything. And we would like to change that. We would like to be able to take her ministry on ourselves and to be able to pay for the ministry that she is offering us, rather than the diocese paying her to be among us. We also have a pastoral assistant, who is Sally Harrison, who is a lot of help in a variety of different ways around the church. One of the main things that she is in the process of doing is to build a pastoral care team. What that team does is it's going to be trained to offer care for those who are suffering in a variety of different ways. As you know, our congregation is an aging congregation, and with age comes increased incidence of illness and increased incidence of the loss of loved ones. So we want to have a well-trained group of people who would be able to walk with those who are suffering either due to loss or due to illness or pain that they are feeling themselves because of disease. We are also part of an aging neighborhood, and I was told once by a pastor who has become a psychologist that the people who walk through our doors, a large number of them who just walk in, very recently have dealt with some sort of serious suffering. They might have lost a loved one, they might have lost a job, they might be dealing with a serious or terminal illness themselves. And so the people who are walking in off the street into our church, into our congregation, quite often are dealing with some sort of serious pain. And we want to be able to meet them in a way that we are prepared to walk with them in their suffering. And I think that is a profound ministry that is well worth our efforts. It is also a way that we can fulfill the gifts that are among us. In Matthew 25, you might remember the story about the parable of the talents, and how one man goes and he buries his talent in the ground and does nothing with it. And the master comes back and gives him trouble for burying that talent. Well, there are many gifts within our congregation, and many of them are active, and people are not burying their gifts, they're using them. But we also want to make sure that we are giving people the training that they deserve to have, to be able to make sure that they're using their talents, using their gifts to the full capacity. And so we want to be able to help people to do what they are being called by God to do. A pastoral care team will also allow me some space to be able to do what I have come into the diocese to do, which is to focus on mission. And I'll speak a little bit about my role in the diocese in a minute. First, I want to give you an overview of the REACH campaign. We have been called to raise $205,000. The diocese itself is trying to raise $5 million in total. So our portion is $205,000. 50% of what we raise, minus expenses for the campaign itself, is going to be coming directly back to St. Timothy's. So that's around $100,000 is going to be coming back to St. Timothy's to be able to, for us to be able to use in terms of pastoral care and also in children and youth ministries. 40% is going to be going back to the diocese for diocesan projects. 10% is going to be going to the national church. So what is a diocese? A diocese is a gathering of churches as a body in a geographic area. And so we are the Diocese of Edmonton. And we at St. Timothy's are sort of like 1/53rd of that diocese. It isn't a separate body that exists apart from us. We are a part of it. And so the diocese is a gathering of all those churches. And the ministries of the diocese are really ministries that we are doing together with other churches. We are gathering our resources, and we are trying to do what God is calling us to do in this particular geographic area. And we're trying to do what we could not do on our own. Within our diocese, the REACH campaign is going to be going towards 4 different goals. One is Barnabas. I came into the diocese as a Barnabas priest, as a priest in mission. When I came into St. Timothy's, I came to help you find a rector originally, and I was going to remain at St. Timothy's as priest in mission to help this parish reach out into its community and to think of fresh ways to worship. One of the other things that Barnabas does is it puts on a church planting conference, and that happens kind of every 2 years. It has been the pattern. And that people have come all over Western Canada to that church planting conference. We bring in world-class speakers to speak about where the future of the church is and what God's Spirit is guiding us towards. Barnabas priests also go into a variety of different parishes in the diocese, and they help guide them towards a more missional way of thinking about being Christians. What it means as a church to reach out to your neighborhood, to think a little bit differently about who we are as Christians and who we are in this particular culture. The Diocesan REACH campaign is also going to be working with Indigenous ministries. And you might know Travis Enright, who is doing profound and important work among First Nations people in our diocese, especially in Edmonton. A very, very creative person. We are also going to be focusing on rural ministries. And I know I've spent time in a couple of rural parishes, and it is a difficult ministry at times. It is also a beautiful ministry at times. Our history as a church, as a rural church, has not been great. It has often been a place where people have been put as a first charge as a priest, and it is also, and so it would be a place where people would sort of make their mistakes. It hasn't been a place where people have really taken rural ministry seriously. The diocese will also be directing support for new worshiping communities. One of these communities is Emmaus Road, which meets at St. Augustine's on the east side of the city. It is an new and creative worshiping community. I've worshiped with them and led worship and preached at their gatherings before. And it's important that we have these kinds of experimental worshiping communities as we start to try to follow where God's leading us in the future as the church. Overall, this diocese is a very forward-looking and forward-praying diocese, and it is known across the nation for the way that it is forward-thinking and forward-praying. It is creative, it is innovative, and it is being bold. I was attracted to this diocese because of its mission-centeredness. I thank you for considering your support, and I pray that God would bless both this campaign and our parish, and that God would bless you in your consideration and your prayers.